article. So you guys are going to want to look at this sheet here. At the very top left, it should say The Guardian, and it's called The Working from Home Revolution. And this is a very timely article, right? Because we're all, dealing with the coronavirus, and many of us are probably working from home right now. So I think this article is quite good. It's up to date. It's something that should be discussed, of course, right? So as usual with these kind of articles, we have to go over some pre-reading activities first. Then we're going to get into the reading, and then we have to do a comprehension check, right? So that will probably take a fair amount of time. We'll see how this goes. In our elective class today, which might start before the third class, we're going to be going over some vocabulary and also some more reading. So today is going to be very focused on reading and vocab and that kind of stuff. Anyhow, I hope you guys are doing well today. How is everybody doing? Whether you're in Brazil, Japan, Korea, Chile, Mexico, Senegal, etc. Hope you guys are doing good. I'm doing okay. As usual, or like you might already know, I'm pretty tired because I don't get a lot of sleep because my newborn child cries quite a bit, which is normal, but yeah, it makes you tired, so I'm tired as usual, but that's okay. All right, guys, so let's get started here. Take a look at this Guardian article, and yeah, the working from home revolution. So we can already kind of guess what this topic is going to be about, right? It's going to be about working from home. Now, maybe you at home, maybe you do work from home right now, right? I do some work from home as well. But let's take a look at our warmer in number 1, our warm-up activity. It says here, many people are now working from home. Which of these jobs could be done from home and which cannot? Okay, so sounds like we should probably make a list here and divide it into 2. So I'm going to draw a line, and sorry, that line is not straight. And I'll draw this one here. I'm very bad at using the whiteboard or blackboard. That's like one of my weaknesses as a teacher. Anyhow, so we're going to break this into 2 different lists. People who can work from home and people who cannot. So I'm just going to write people who can. People who can work from home. And people who cannot work from home. Okay, and we got this big list of different jobs here, right? So we'll get started on the left, and then we'll proceed through to the right. The first job we have listed here is banker. Can a banker work from home? Or does a banker need to work in a bank or in an office? Now, a lot of banking is done electronically these days. So my guess is this one is pretty obvious. I think a banker could work from home. I don't think they necessarily need to be in a bank in order to do their job. Of course, that would make it easier, right? Because I think bankers often have to communicate with their colleagues. But of course, these days, a lot of people are using things like Zoom or Google Meets or Skype or whatever in order to talk with their colleagues. So I think banker, I think this is something that could be done from home. So I'm going to write that down there. Okay, so banker can work from home. Not to the right. Let's say under banker, we have computer programmer. All right, so what is a computer programmer? A computer programmer is someone who makes computer programs or software or applications, things like that, using their computer. The key word there is their computer. Computer programmers, I actually have a friend of mine, really good guy. He's a highly skilled computer programmer. He knows a lot of different computer program languages like Python or Ruby, etc., and he works remotely. And that's a good job, or that's a good word. It's also a good job, but anyhow. To work remotely means to work outside of the office. So this guy, actually right now he's in Krakow in Poland. I think he's actually kind of stuck there. But anyhow, he usually travels around the world and goes to different locations and continues to work for different companies. So of course, a computer programmer does not need to work in an office, right? They can basically work anywhere. So we're going to add that job to the list here. A computer programmer. Okie dokie. So yeah, we got computer programmer and banker, but our next term here, our next occupation is construction worker. Okay. Now, obviously, a construction worker is someone who builds buildings, right, and sets things up. Can these guys work from home? Not really, right? Because, of course, they need to be on the job site. They need to be laying down bricks or, I don't know, putting in wood or whatever. This is one job that cannot be done from home. Unless maybe there's a kind of robot that they can control remotely from home. But that doesn't really make sense. So yeah, a construction worker is someone who cannot work from home. And at least in Vancouver, even though lots of people have kind of lost their jobs or temporarily lost their jobs because of coronavirus, actually there's still a lot of construction. So a lot of construction workers are still working here. Construction worker. And it's a pretty good job in Vancouver too. Pays quite good. Anyhow, underneath construction worker, we have driver. So I think this means like taxi driver or somebody who drives for Uber or something like that, right? Obviously, a taxi driver or an Uber driver cannot work from home. That just doesn't make any sense. So I think we got to add that to the list of people who cannot work from home. So we'll just write down driver. Okay, after that we have doctor. Can a doctor work from home? No, that sounds weird. Maybe patients go to the doctor's home, but that would probably be a doctor's worst nightmare, right? No, doctors need to be able to see their patients, to identify their symptoms and be able to diagnose them. So a doctor cannot really work from home. It doesn't really make sense. I guess a doctor, like a lot of doctors probably in your country and also in Canada, they do talk to people over the phone, right? But, and yeah, they could do like Zoom or like Skype meetings with potential patients, but it doesn't really make enough sense. I still think a doctor would have to see a patient face to face and check them out. So I'd say, yeah, doctor is one of the jobs that cannot work from home. They could probably do a lot of stuff from home, but I think essentially no. They need to meet with their patients face to face. I don't think they can work from home. Okay, further on to the right here, we have journalist. Can a journalist work at home? Okay, for me this is a tricky one. This is kind of 50-50. Journalists could do a lot of their work at home. That's true, and they do a lot of their work at home, right? Writing up articles and that kind of stuff. But the articles they're writing up are based upon research, and a lot of the research they've done probably involves meeting with people, having discussions. Now, of course, they could still do that from home, again, through Skype or Zoom or whatever. So it's possible, but you know, if you're an international correspondent or something and you're living in a different country, you need to go out there, you need to film things, you need to interview people on the street. Journalists work from home. Yes, kind of. Not really. I'm gonna say, to me, I'd say ultimately no. I think good journalists need to get out there. Can they work from home? I'd have to say no. Okay, beneath journalists we have lawyer. Now, I have a personal connection to this because my older brother is a lawyer, and he did work from home. during the coronavirus. He's back in the office now, only 2 or 3 days a week, but he can work from home. Most of his work he can get done from home. It's not ideal, but I think we could add lawyer to the list of occupations that can work from home. Because yeah, lawyers, their main job is not telling the truth. And you don't need to work in an office in order to not tell the truth. Ha ha ha, just kidding. But yeah, lawyer, people, or somebody who cannot, or who can work from home. Anyhow. After that, we have police officer. Can a police officer work at home? Sure, they could do a lot of their paperwork at home, but police officers need to be out there on the street, making sure things are peaceful. So obviously, I'd have to say no, that doesn't really work. Police officer. Okay. After that, the one to the right, we've got teacher. Can a teacher work from home? Yes, they can. Not as effectively as they can in the classroom, but yes, it is possible. So I would also add them to the list here of people who can work from home. Again, it's not ideal. Maybe in your country right now, especially if you have a kid, I'm sure the school system in your country has set up some kind of online learning program with their teacher. I know my older brothers, 2 boys, they go to school maybe 2 days a week, and the other 3 days it's all online. It's not working out that great. Kids get distracted very easily when they're using the computer because there's a lot of other fun things they can do on it. But yeah, teachers can work from home, kind of. So we'll add them to the list. Okay, and then we have pilot. Pilot, somebody who flies a plane. Can they work from home? Obviously, no. Now, of course, we know now that there are drones, and I know in the military that there are people who fly those drones, around the world, and they're working in an office or maybe even at home. But yeah, that doesn't really make sense. Pilot cannot work at home. Okay, so it looks like with this list here that we have more occupations for people who cannot work from home than we have for people who can work at home. So I just want to think about this again and think, are there any jobs here that could potentially be moved over here? Pilot, I'd have to say no. Police officer, no. Journalist, though. Journalist. That's a tough one. Like I said before, they could accomplish a lot of stuff at home, but I feel like they do need to get out there. I would say it should be somewhere in between. Doctor, yeah, I have to say no. Driver and construction worker doesn't really work. Now, of course, I do have an answer key for this, which I might not agree with. So I just want to take a quick look here. Yeah, banker, computer programmer, journalist, lawyer, doctor. Banker, computer programmer, journalist, lawyer, teacher. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wrote down here, except for journalists. They did put that in the list of people who can work from home. And they also included doctor, but they wrote sometimes. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. But anyhow, I think this is a pretty good list, guys. I think that's pretty realistic. Some of these people can work at home. Other people here, not as much, right? Anyhow, so that's just a quick warm-up to get us thinking about who can work at home. So let's move on to number 2, guys. Number 2, we've got some vocabulary here. And it says, fill the gaps in the sentences using these words from the text. Okay, so we got some difficult terms here. Wastage, remotely, commute, behemoth, dawns on, lockdown, acknowledge, shift, pandemic, and to run on. Okay, now I don't want to go over each of these terms in extreme detail. I think you guys will be better able to understand them in context when we fill them into the blanks. But I think I probably should go over each word briefly with you guys so you get a brief idea so that you can fill in the blanks. And how many do we got here? We just have 10. So I'll write down the answers on this side here, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so first term we have here though is wastage, and of course that comes from waste. What is waste? W-A-S-T-E. or to waste something. Waste can be a noun and waste can be a verb as well, right? Waste is kind of like garbage, something that is useless, right? And to waste means to not use something effectively, right? So let's say your mom or your dad, when you were a kid, they said, hey, spend 1 hour working on your homework, right? So you spend 1 hour playing computer games, right? You don't work on your homework, and after 1 hour, your mom says to you, like, oh my God, did you just play video games for a whole hour? And you're like, yes. And then your mom says, you wasted your time. We use that expression quite a lot, actually. To waste time is to not use time effectively. We all waste time when we're at home, right? You know, maybe you're supposed to do the dishes or do some work at home, but instead you watch cat videos on YouTube because cat videos are so cute, right? On YouTube. But anyhow, maybe you waste an hour watching cute cat videos on YouTube. Well, you wasted an hour. So really good expression, waste, to not use effectively, right? Or somebody lends you something and you don't use it or you don't use it well. Of course, you could say you wasted it. You just didn't use it right. Anyhow, but wastage is related to that, of course. Wastage is a waste of something, right? Okay, next word we have here on the list, I already actually wrote on the board. It is remotely. To work remotely is how we most often use remote, right? Now, remotely is related to remote, and remote is related to secluded or isolated, right? If you live in a remote village or remote town, that means that town or that village is very, very far away from many other large population centers, right? If you live remotely in the forest, that means you live in the forest far away from other people, right? You are living a secluded or isolated life. But to work remotely means to not have to work in an office, right? That means you can work maybe anywhere in the world, whether that's at home or in Starbucks or somewhere else, right? Like I said before, my friend who's a computer programmer, he works remotely, and so he just kind of travels around the world and continues to work for his company. Anyhow, after remotely, guys, we have commute, right? Now, commute can be a noun and a verb, right? Nobody likes commute. This is like kind of a negative word. People hate this word. And a lot of people will ask you, what is your commute like? How long does it take you to commute from home to work, right? So commute just means that distance or that amount of time it takes to go from your house to your workplace, right? And the verb form just means to go from your house to your workplace or back from your workplace to your house, right? Now, my commute, living where I do in Vancouver, is actually pretty sweet. It's pretty good because my apartment is not very far away from my workplace. Actually, my commute is maybe just a little bit over 10 minutes, and I can commute on foot. I don't have to drive, I don't have to take a bus, I don't have to take the SkyTrain or a subway or a helicopter. I can just commute by foot, and it only takes me around 10-ish minutes. So that's a pretty awesome commute. But many other people in our modern life, they often complain about their commute because some people live very far away from the downtown core where they work, right? And maybe their commute is, I don't know, 1 hour or 1 hour and 30 minutes. Actually, I remember reading about this story, and I thought this was pretty incredible. It was from France. And as you know, the biggest city in France, the capital city, Paris, is quite a large city, has a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunity there. I read this story about a French guy who worked for a company in Paris. And France also has a really, really awesome train system, like Japan or Korea, or I guess China's train system is pretty good nowadays. But anyhow, this guy lived like really far away from Paris in a small village, but a train line did go through his small village, and he would take this fast train every day in order to go to work for an hour and a half. Hour and a half both ways, right? So that's 3 hours of commuting a day, which really sucks in my opinion, right? Nobody wants to commute for 3 hours a day. But he lived incredibly far from Paris, and it seemed kind of funny because he lived in a small village, nice little house, but he worked in, one of the world's biggest cities, Paris. Actually, that's not an interesting story. Why did I tell you that? Anyhow, I thought it was interesting, but maybe not you. Okay, to the right, guys, we have the word behemoth. Behemoth. Behemoth is a really interesting word, and it can have a couple of different meanings, but I think originally the word behemoth comes from the Bible, actually. And behemoth is some kind of like large, terrible monster, right? When we use the word behemoth nowadays, what it means is something very, very large. And it usually means a very large problem, in my opinion. It can be used in different ways. But generally, when I use it, if I say, wow, that's a real behemoth, that means it's either really big or it's like a really big problem. And yeah, that's behemoth. Kind of hard to pronounce. Behemoth. Behemoth. If you are able to use the word behemoth as an ESL student or someone who just speaks English as a second language, if you can use this in a conversation, people will definitely think you're pretty smart. They'll think that, wow, use the word behemoth. Man, many Canadians don't use the word behemoth. How does this guy know it? Anyhow, guys, after that we have Dawn's On. Dawn's On. Dawn. What is Dawn? Dawn is a brand of dish soap. It's not too bad. It's pretty good at cleaning dishes. But anyhow, to dawn on, interesting phrasal verb, right? Now you have to think about, what does dawn mean, right? Well, dawn can also be the name of a person. Not so popular anymore, but more popular in the past, usually for a girl. Dawn, how's Dawn doing? Sounds like a guy's name too, but not really. Now, what is dawn? Dawn is a time of the day, actually, right? Dawn is right when the sun is rising. That is dawn, right? The light is starting to creep out, and you're starting to see the sun. And that is what dawn on is related to. If something dawns on you, the meaning of this is you are starting to realize something important, right? You are beginning to see the light. So, for example, let me think of a good example sentence here. Okay, so I could say, it dawned on me. So it's a little bit hard to use this. Something dawns on somebody, right? It dawned on me that. And then after you use that, you have to explain, what is it that you realized or that this person realized? It dawned on me that unless I change my diet, I will continue to get fatter and fatter, right? So basically that would mean, like, I realized I need to change my diet or I will continue to gain weight, right? So to dawn on is like you slowly start to realize something, right? Or maybe these days, because of coronavirus and many people working from home or losing their jobs, unfortunately, maybe it's dawning on people that the world is going to have to change, right? We're going to have to reorganize society and rethink how we approach work or something like that, right? So to dawn on, to slowly begin to realize something. So actually, I really like this phrasal verb, dawn on. Like, again, if you could use this, people will think you're pretty bright. I don't use this too much because if you think of the context or the way this is used, like to slowly realize something, it's not like something is dawning on you every day, that every day you're like, oh my God, yeah, I need to eat more yogurt, right? Because when something dawns on you, it's kind of a significant thought. It's something important that you are slowly beginning to realize. So of course, you're not using this every day, right? And kind of what you should imagine when you're using this expression is like, you're just kind of sitting there and then suddenly you realize something. You're like, oh my God, yeah. If I put cheese and meat on that bread, it's gonna taste pretty good. No, 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 that's not important enough. It has to be something important, right? Anyhow, really good expression, but not too commonly used. Moving on further, guys. So the bottom left here, we have lockdown. What is a lockdown? Okay, now these days, all of us are probably familiar with a lockdown and what that means, right? Now, if you think about it, you know lock the door, right? If you lock the door, people cannot get in, or maybe you lock yourself in or something, right? So we got lock and then we got down. A lockdown is a situation in which maybe the government or maybe just yourself, you have decided to stay home, right? Basically, lockdown is very similar to another word that you've probably heard recently quite often, starting with a Q, which is quarantine, right? Because of the coronavirus, many people around the world have had to quarantine themselves at home. And it means you just stay home, you don't go out unless it's just to go to the grocery store or to the pharmacy, and that is what a quarantine is. But we also can refer to that as lockdown. The government has said, you must stay at home, okie dokie, I will lock down at home. Okay, after that, guys, we have acknowledge. To acknowledge somebody or to acknowledge something. What does that mean? To acknowledge somebody or something means to notice maybe their existence, right? If I acknowledge my neighbor, it means I kind of send a signal to him that I have seen him or I know him, so I nod at him, right? He acknowledged me by nodding his head, or he acknowledged me by waving his hand, right? In Canada, it's very common between guys to acknowledge each other just by nodding, just this kind of thing. It's probably similar in your country too, I don't know. I know in Korea, when you're acknowledging maybe a friend or maybe just an acquaintance, right? You see them across the street. They're a little bit far away, let's say 10 meters. I got very used to acknowledging people in Korea by doing what I call the lazy bow, not the full bow. You know, the full bow, like, ugh, right? That's too much. That's too formal, right? But I would do the lazy bow, usually with a not a handshake, a hand wave, right? So anyhow, we all acknowledge each other, maybe in different ways in different countries, but the nod is very common. But to acknowledge something also, it doesn't have to be just a person, it can also be a thing or an idea. To acknowledge an idea is to show that you understand that idea or you are aware of that idea. After that, guys, we have shift. Now, shift, very commonly used. Shift can mean change direction, go the other way, go in a different way, right? So maybe oftentimes governments will shift directions, right? You know, they're planning on doing this, but it's not working out, so they'll shift directions. Recently, lots of countries, again, because of coronavirus, they've had this kind of plan. I know that, I think it's Sweden. Sweden decided early on in the pandemic that they were just not going to lock down and not going to quarantine everybody in the country. Instead, they would just continue with business like usual, but they asked people to, socially distance from each other and all this kind of stuff. But that didn't really work out. Sweden imagined that, it's okay if some people die or some people get really sick because we will build up immunity quickly, faster than people in other countries. But now they kind of realize that that was kind of a mistake because a lot of people are dying and a lot of people are getting infected. So they've decided to shift their priorities and told people to stay at home. Anyhow, after shift, we have pandemic. I've already brought the word pandemic up. Pandemic, epidemic, very infectious disease. A pandemic is a situation in which a infectious disease like coronavirus, COVID-19, bubonic plague, smallpox, etc. What was the other one? Swine flu, SARS. Yeah, no, there were so many. But especially right now, coronavirus is really bad. But a pandemic is when an infectious disease has spread, I think basically to all continents around the world and is highly contagious, like coronavirus. So we are living in a pandemic right now, at least until a vaccine or cure is developed. Anyhow, after that we have run on. Blech. Now, run on can mean to continue for a long time, like I am. I'm kind of running on here. Blah, blah, blah. I keep talking, right? So run on can just kind of mean continue. Okay, so we went over the vocab here. I did go over this very briefly. These terms are probably quite a bit harder than the brief explanation that I gave you. So feel free to check them out in more detail if you wish, but it's also useful to see them being used in context. So let's take a look at number 1 together, guys. And number 1 here says, a blank is an occurrence of a disease that affects many people across the whole world. Ding, ding, ding. Easy one, right? Because we just talked about this. This, of course, is a pandemic. So there's another good explanation of what a pandemic is. A disease that spreads around the world and infects many people. Okay, good. Number 2, a blank is a situation where people are not allowed to leave their homes. Okay, easy, right? This is related to quarantine. So, of course, what we're looking for here is lockdown. A lockdown is a situation in which you are being asked to stay at home, lock your doors, stay home, don't go out. You can only go out if you're going to the grocery store or at the pharmacy. You cannot go out and meet your friend and hug them and give them kisses and all this kind of stuff because that would be stupid during a pandemic. Anyhow, number 3, a something is a change in something. Ooh. Okay, good. This is related to what I was talking about before with like maybe a government changing its position quite quickly. They're shifting, right? Or maybe you personally are changing something in your life, a life change, a life shift. So that's what we're looking for here, a shift. A shift is a change in something. Okay, guys, number 4, a blank is the journey to and from work each day. So like I said, this word, it doesn't conjure up good images, right? It doesn't bring up or pop up good images into your mind. It probably brings up that image of you sitting on the subway or on a bus or in the car and you're like, going to work, oh God. So anyhow, but the term is commute, like we talked about earlier. So number 4 is commute. So yeah, commute. So in this case, we're using it in the noun form, but remember, it can also be used as a verb. Number 5 here says, if you work blank, you do not go to a workplace, but work from home on a computer. And maybe not just work from home, basically work anywhere outside of the workplace, maybe in a different country, in Starbucks, or yada yada. Anyhow, we already talked about this before. Again, this one is remotely. If you work remotely, you maybe work from home or you work anywhere, basically. Oh, my mistake. There should have been an E here. Oh, yikes. I am embarrassed. Okay, number 6, guys. If things such as meetings, blank, they continue for longer than expected or planned. If things continue for too long, they do what? If they run on for too long, they go on for far longer than expected, right? Okay, number 7, if you blank something, you accept or admit that it is true or real. Oh, yeah. Okay. This one is related to, of course, understanding or recognizing that something is there or somebody is there, right? By recognizing their presence. So like maybe a nod, or maybe bowing down, or just kind of saying that you understand that. Of course, this is acknowledge. To acknowledge something, or to acknowledge somebody. Now, actually, acknowledge is quite useful. I say so far when it comes to this list here, because run-on is quite good, but acknowledge is probably the most important one or most commonly used so far. Anyhow, guys, number 8, a something is something that is very large, especially a company. Okay, like I said before, this word can mean something big or something like big and scary or bad, but it can just mean something big, and it is a biblical word. So this word that we're looking for is behemoth. Behemoth. Actually, I'd have to say, when it comes to this list here, behemoth is probably the least commonly used because there are so many other words we could use besides behemoth. But anyhow, interesting word. Like I said before, if you can use it, it will make you sound smart. Number 9, if something blank you realize it for the first time. Okay, awesome. So this is that phrasal verb we were talking about before. When you slowly begin to realize something, you just begin to realize it, right? Like, oh my God, right? I think my neighbor is a bad person or whatever. So yeah, this is dawn on. Something dawns on you. You realize it for the first time. Okay, so we all know what number 10 is by process of elimination, but anyhow, number 10, blank, is a situation in which something such as time or money is not used effectively. And that was our first word that we looked at. It is wastage. Now, wastage itself, I would say not a terribly useful word, but just the verb form, or, well, this could also be a noun as well, waste, is actually a very useful word. I probably don't use this every day, but almost every day, because we all probably waste time every day. We're like, hey, I'm gonna work on something for 30 minutes, but then instead we listen to music or watch TV or something, right? And we waste time. So I think all of us waste time probably on a daily basis. So that's why the word waste is so useful. Not just waste time, but waste something, right? Maybe you went and bought a sandwich from Subway and you intended to eat it at home and you brought it home and you put it on the table. Somehow you forgot about it. And then 2 days later, you're like, oh yeah, that sandwich. Maybe I can still eat it. And you smell it and it smells really bad. And you're like, oh damn, I wasted this sandwich and I wasted my money, right? And that's really too bad. Or maybe you do eat the sandwich, but then you get food poisoning and it starts a pandemic. Ha ha ha, just kidding. Okay guys, anyhow, we still have to read the article, but before reading the article, we have one more pre-reading activity. This one is kind of tough. I would imagine it'd be better if you guys actually did this by yourselves, but in number 3 here it says, find the information. Find the following information in the text as quickly as possible. So what they want you to do here is to do some skimming. And skimming means like briefly or very quickly reading over some information. Not really reading over in detail, just looking for key words, right? Or key expressions. So this one here wants you to skim, and it says, find the following information in the text as quickly as possible. So let's see if we can do this together. I'm not like an expert skimmer or anything, right? But anybody who goes to university in Canada or America, you have to get good at skimming because you don't have a lot of time and you often have to read over articles and try to find what is important as quickly as possible. So I'm going to erase this stuff here, guys, our wonderful list of jobs where maybe you could work at home from and jobs where you cannot. But I'll erase this here, and woo, this is a good eraser. Okay, awesome. So the first one here says, which company is the world's biggest employer in the marketing and advertising sector? So you need to find out which company is the world's largest employer in marketing and also advertising. So you'd have to skim over the article, try to find the name of a company and make sure that that company is the largest in that sector. So let's take a look together. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Okay, so this one's not too bad, guys, because it's in the second paragraph. If you take a look there, it says, Mark Reed, the chief executive of WPP, the world's biggest employer in the marketing and advertising sector, welcomes a working from home revolution. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, so WPP, the world's biggest employer in marketing and advertising. So WPP, I guess, is the answer. Actually, to be honest, I've never heard of this company before, but I'm not really into marketing and that kind of stuff so much. But I guess that's interesting. I've never heard of them. I'm wondering if Now, of course, The Guardian is a British or a paper from the UK, right? And the article we're reading here, most of this information is from the UK. So I'm wondering if WPP is a British company. Probably British or American. I guess we'll find out later. But anyhow, so that's number one. Number two, how many people does this company have working from home? Okay, that's probably also in the second paragraph. So take a look. Oh, okay, yeah, this is also in number two. So how many people does this company have working from home? The answer is also in the second paragraph here, because it says that Mark Reed, the chief executive of WPP, he says, if you said to me 5 weeks ago that I would have 100,000 people working from home and we would function fine, I'd say you were mad. So WPP and Mark Reed, the chief executive officer of WPP, they have 100,000 people working from home. That is a lot of people working from home. 100,000, that's like 6 times the size of my hometown. My hometown has like a population of about 15 to 20,000. So yeah, 5 to 6 times the population of my hometown. Wow, that's a ton of people. Okay, anyhow, number 3, guys, it says, according to 3/4 of U.S. chief financial officers, what percentage of their workforce will become permanent from home employees? Wow, that is really tough. So according to 3/4 of U.S. financial officers. Okay, so let's look for U.S. financial officers. Okay. Okay. So if you guys take a look at paragraph 7, it says, but adaptation is occurring where it can. A U.S. survey by the research firm Gartner has found that 3/4 of chief financial officers believe that at least 5% of their workforce who previously worked in company offices will become permanent work-from-home employees after the pandemic ends. Of these CFOs, 17% believe a fifth of staff will move to working from home, and 4% believe that half of employees, oh my God, will become remote workers. Okay, but yeah, we need to see, what was it again? 3/4 of U.S. financial officers. So 3/4 of them believe that at least 5% of their workforce will work from home. So 5% is the percentage we are looking for here, because the question was what percentage of the workforce will become permanent work from home employees. Wow, that sounds pretty crazy. So 3/4 of them thought 5% plus, could be a little bit higher. But other ones thought that the percentage may be higher. And it did say that 4% believe that actually maybe half of the workforce could work from home, right? Even after this pandemic ends. That sounds pretty crazy, right? That would mean that the workplace would have to change quite a lot. Anyhow, number 4 got number 6. What? Number 4 says, which 3 business sectors does the article mention as likely long-time losers? Maybe because of this pandemic. So which sectors will be long-term losers because of this pandemic and this work-from-home revolution? So let's continue onwards here. Okay. So the answer can be found in paragraph 9. It says here, from that perspective, the likely long-term losers are airlines, hotels, and a commercial property sector, already reeling from the destruction being suffered by retailers. Okay, so there's our answers. We got airliners, so companies like Air Canada, Korea Air, JAL, etc. They're in big trouble, of course, because people are not really flying. Actually, my wife works for Delta Air. Thankfully, she had to go on maternity leave anyhow because of our daughter, but it's not a good time to be working as a flight attendant or somebody who works for an airline. Definitely not. Commercial property sector. Commercial property. So these three sectors are going to be long-term losers because of this crisis. So I feel bad for anybody who works in the airline industry, anybody who works for hotels, a really tough time for them. Or commercial property sector, do I feel bad for these people? Nah, not really, because they charge too much money. But anyhow, no, I do feel bad for them too. Okay, what else we got here? Okay, number 5, what percentage of the UK workforce worked from home before the coronavirus pandemic? Wow, okay, that's a tough question. Now actually this is confusing because this one is not continuing onwards. Actually, you have to go back to the first paragraph. And the first paragraph is said, before the coronavirus pandemic struck, 1.7 million people mainly worked from home in the UK, or about 5% of the country's 33 million workforce. So actually there were already a significant number of people working from home anyhow. And that percentage was again 5%. 5% seems to be the lucky number here. Okay guys, and our very last one, number 6, and the timing is good because we're just about to take a break here. Says, what percentage of US chief financial officers believe that 20% of workers will eventually work from home? Now that might be related to number 3, so that could be in paragraph 7. Those CFOs, 17% believe a fifth of staff. What percentage of U.S. chief financial officers? Okay. So yeah, again, this is related to paragraph 7 as well. So kind of in the middle of paragraph 7, it says, of those CFOs, 17% believe a fifth of staff, which would be 20%, will move to working from home. Okay, so that's our answer because they think 20% of staff will be working at home. The percentage we're looking for here is 17%. So 17% of CFOs in the United States believe that maybe 1/5 or 20% of the workforce will continue to work from home. But I think the crazy statistic here was, actually 4% of CFOs think that 50% or 1/2 of all employees can work remotely at home. That would be such a huge cultural change if half of us are working from home and the other half are going to work. I don't know what people would prefer, honestly. Anyhow, guys, we finally got all our pre-reading activities done. So we're going to take a break. After the break, we'll read the article, we'll do the comprehension check, and then we'll take another break, and then we'll do the elective. So anyhow, I'll see you again in about 10 minutes. Bye-bye. Okay guys, welcome back to PST. So before we took a break in the class, we did all of the pre-reading activities, right? I realize now that probably I spent too much time on the pre-reading activities, but that's okay. So what we need to do here is read the actual article and then do a comprehension check. Let's try to make sure that we actually get all of this done in this class. If we don't, it's okay if it spills into the third class, but then we won't have very much time for the elective, which could be interesting. So what I would ask you guys to do at home is to look at the actual article and read along with me. Hopefully I can provide you guys with a good example of correct pronunciation. And of course, you could deal with this like a listening activity. You could just listen to me, but it would be a good idea to actually read along. Anyhow, guys, so let's read this here. It says, first paragraph, of course, before the coronavirus pandemic struck, 1.7 million people mainly work from home in the UK, or about 5% of the country's 33 million workforce. Since the pandemic, millions more have joined them in the spare room or at the kitchen table. Amid warnings that some lockdown restrictions could stay in place into 2021, companies are grappling with a sudden cultural shift in how we work. Wow, yeah. So this is quite interesting. Very timely article. Actually, the article is dated April 18th, right? Second paragraph. Mark Reed, the chief executive of WPP, the world's biggest employer in the marketing and advertising sector, welcomes a working from home revolution, but says it is not right for everyone. If you said to me 5 weeks ago that I would have 100,000 people working from home and we would function fine, I'd say you were mad. One of the most common questions I get is about working from home longer term. There is interest in it, but there is also demand to come back to an office. Junior employees and those in shared accommodation find home working much more difficult than senior executives with houses and gardens. Now, actually, yeah, that's a very good point. Working from home is pretty easy for people who have a large house and maybe don't have kids, right? People like me who are maybe a little bit younger, or people in their 20s and stuff, working from home might be a lot harder because they might have a roommate or somebody else, and maybe their accommodation is not large enough, right? For me personally, working from home is not that great and not ideal because I've got 2 kids and we don't have a very large apartment. So it's very hard for me to separate myself from my family and find time to work from home. If I'm working on my laptop and my 2-year-old daughter is around, she wants to start touching the keyboard and I basically can't do any work after that. Anyhow, third paragraph, guys. For one London-based animation and special effects business, Jellyfish Pictures, working from home has been a surprise success. In the future, its staff will find that on certain days of the week, their new morning commute is limited to walking to the kitchen table. Jellyfish, which employs about 250 staff and has credits including Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and Black Mirror, great show, has continued to work on projects including a film for the Shrek maker DreamWorks, despite shutting its 5 UK studios at the beginning of March. Paragraph 4. What we have learned from this is that there hasn't been any drop in productivity. The Jellyfish founder Phil Dobry says, some practices have improved, such as communication, which is actually more regular and efficient remotely. In the office, meetings often unnecessarily run on, or conversely, people don't communicate enough. Now they are. Well, that's an interesting point. So this guy's actually saying that a lot of the meetings they have in the office are kind of a big waste of time, right? But now, when people are working remotely and communicating with each other, it's not so bad. It's actually working out better. Paragraph 5. The speed with which Silicon Valley companies such as Google, Facebook, and Twitter ordered their employees globally to make the shift to home working in late February and early March makes a challenging transition for many companies look easy. Paragraph 6, most Facebook employees are fortunate to be able to work from home, the company's chief executive, Mark Zuckerberg, acknowledged. We know that most people can't work from home as easily as many of our employees can. Indeed, the companies that are most able to adapt to home working are limited to sectors such as media, tech, and financial services. For others representing vast areas of employment, airlines, brick and mortar retail, car manufacturing, it is impossible. Now, I know we've gone over a lot of difficult vocabulary here, but I just want to look at bricks and mortar retail. Bricks and mortar retail just means like a real retail location, a real store, you know, H&M, Uniqlo, whatever, like a real physical store, not an online shop. Of course, lots of retailers right now are doing really, really poorly because of the coronavirus pandemic. Anyhow, paragraph 7, guys. But adaptation is occurring where it can. A U.S. survey by the research firm Gartner has found that 3/4 of chief financial officers believe that at least 5% of their workforce who previously worked in company offices will become permanent work-from-home employees after the pandemic ends. Of those CFOs, 17% believe a fifth of staff will move to working from home, and 4% believe that half of employees will become remote workers. So that was kind of the paragraph that we looked in detail at previously, and I thought that was just really fascinating. Anyhow, paragraph 8, guys. The lessons learnt from lockdown could spark a more rapid and widespread virtualization of business practices, according to one investor. It is clear to us that we are likely to see an increasing virtualization of business life, says Jamie Ross, a fund manager of Henderson Euro Trust. Remote working has gone much more smoothly than many companies feared. We will see more people working from home, smaller office spaces, more meetings being conducted online, and less corporate travel. Okay, so yeah, I would probably agree with this. I think even after the pandemic ends, probably a lot more people are going to be working from home than previously. There's going to be a lot more meetings online. There's probably going to be a lot less corporate travel, right? Because it's not as necessary in this globalized world, right? Like if I need to make a contact and meet with somebody in Tokyo, why should I fly to Tokyo, spend so much money, stay in a hotel, etc., so I can meet this person face to face? That's great, but I could just meet them face to face using Skype or Zoom or something like that. Of course, it's kind of missing a personal touch, but nonetheless, it saves a lot of money. Paragraph 9. From that perspective, the likely long-term losers are airlines, hotels, and a commercial property sector already reeling from the destruction being suffered by retailers. It will also change some industries that have been under pressure but can adapt at least. The publishing industry has had the technology to allow many staff to work from home for years, but many companies have been resistant to implementing widespread flexible working practices. Yeah, now this has been talked about a lot recently, that a lot of companies previous to the pandemic have been kind of like reluctant to allow their employees to work flexibly or to work from home and this kind of stuff. But because of the pandemic, this is probably changing a lot of companies' minds, right? Anyhow, paragraph 10, guys. The impact of the coronavirus has accelerated the long-term pressures publishers have been battling, including the decline in print sales and drift of readership and advertising online to the Bahamas of Google and Facebook. As balance sheets are further stretched, the cost savings from being able to reduce office space is likely to prove attractive. So yeah, of course, a lot of companies dealing in, media and publishers, people who publish books or articles and stuff, they've already been losing a lot of money to companies like Google and Facebook and that kind of stuff because they rely on advertisements to make money, right? But one place they could save money is in, corporate real estate or office space, because now they might realize, we don't need to have so many people working here in the office. Why don't we just reduce the office space, and have these people work from home where they could still do their job. Anyhow, number 11, guys. Coronavirus has concertinated a lot of change we have been seeing over the last number of years in just 3 months. Flexible working being one of them, says James Wildman. Oh, I like his last name, Wildman. Anyhow, the chief executive of the Cosmopolitan owner, Hearst UK, and a former executive at the publisher of The Mirror and Express Titles. Office space is costly and tends to be high density, and a lot of people will be uncomfortable with that even after the virus. Forward-thinking managers were already pushing flexible working, but in more traditional industries like newspaper publishing, there has unfortunately been a cultural lag. So I guess in the publishing industry, especially newspaper publishing industry, a lot of the CFOs, CEOs, whatever, they've been really reluctant to allow people to work at home. But because of coronavirus, now they have to. So it is changing their minds. It's causing a shift, right? Anyhow, number 12, guys, says Citibanks were some of the first to split their operations, with Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, HSBC, and Barclays sending thousands of staff to work from home. John Cronin, a financial analyst at the stockbroker Goodbody, says it will start dawning on bosses that most banking roles, including research, trading, and sales, are desk jobs that can ultimately be done from home. This will be a revolution in terms of how we work, he says. There's a lot of wastage. A lot of people travel abroad for one meeting, and I think those days are over. Okay, so I think this article, like I said before, very timely, quite interesting. I agree with a lot of what they have to say here. I think this whole pandemic is going to cause a big cultural change, but also a big work cultural change, in that I think a lot of people and companies are realizing that a lot of their employees can work from home, and maybe even after the pandemic is over with, hopefully, people will continue to work at home because there's a lot of waste. A lot of money is spent on corporate real estate, on office buildings, when maybe they don't really need to, right? Maybe they can just have a significant number of employees working from home doing the same job, and maybe they don't need to come to the office, right? But also things like corporate meetings or business meetings where you travel from one place and meet somebody just for one meeting. A lot of people are now realizing that's a big waste of money, right? You have to pay for the ticket to fly there. You got to pay for accommodations just so you can have a meeting face-to-face with this person. That's kind of a waste of money when you could easily, for no cost, meet somebody online through Google Meets, Zoom, Skype, yada, yada. Yeah, it's just really not necessary. So yeah, I think this article is, I basically agree with it. It's pretty accurate. I do think it will cause a big change. However, there is one thing I am kind of skeptical about, and skeptical is a pretty good word. There's skeptic, he is a skeptic, and there is skeptical, which is the adjective form. Skeptical, and skeptic is the noun. If you are a skeptic, it means you're the kind of person that doesn't easily believe others or articles so much. Same with skeptical person. You're kind of suspicious of other people or claims or whatever. One thing I'm kind of skeptical about is the amount of productivity. Like, working in a school, most of my colleagues are hard workers. We work hard, blah, 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 right? Working from home, I think that's one of the biggest problems for employers, is that they don't exactly trust their employees to work productively at home. And a lot of people would say that employers shouldn't think like that, that's not fair, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of agree with them. When I'm working at home, yes, I think I work fairly productively, but there's also you could easily get distracted at home because of your kids, your dog, your cat, your wife, your boyfriend, husband, girlfriend, yada, yada. Get distracted by YouTube videos, to get distracted by something else. So I don't necessarily believe that employees are just as productive at home. I think that lots of people who are very self-motivated can work just as well at home as they can in the office. But I think there are other people that need like assistance, or they need a little bit of pressure in order to work hard. So anyhow, that's just my own personal belief. But guys, let's move on to our comprehension check. So take a look at number 4. It says choose the best answer according to the text. Okay, so we got a lot of comprehension to do here. Take a look at number 1. According to the chief executive of WPP, how do people react to working from home? Okay, so let's look at our options. A, everyone likes it because they don't have to commute. B, most people dislike it because it's boring. C, some people find it more difficult than others. Okay, now to me, right off the bat, I'm thinking it's like a combination of A and C. But just to be sure, I'm going to switch back to the article, take a quick look here. Probably paragraph 2. Yeah, he said, one of the most common questions I get is about working from home longer term. There's interest in it, but there's also a demand to come back to an office. Junior employees and those in shared accommodation find home working much more difficult than senior executives with houses and gardens. Okay, so yeah, our answer is definitely C here. Some people find it more difficult than others. And again, that's related to, I think usually younger people or people sharing an apartment with other people. It's harder for those people to work at home, right? Ideally, you know, working from home would kind of be paradise if you have a big house and lots of space and your kids are in school and you can work from home. That'd be awesome, right? But for a lot of people, the reality is, you know, their kids are young, it's very noisy, or they're sharing an apartment with a roommate, and yeah, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, number 2, according to the founder of Jellyfish, what aspect of the business has particularly improved? Is it A, productivity, B, communication, or C, film projects? Now, I think the answer is actually communication, but let's double check. Paragraph 4, what we have learned from this is that there hasn't been any drop in productivity, the Jellyfish founder Phil Dobre says. Some practices have improved, such as communication, which is actually more regular and efficient remotely. Okay, so you might think productivity, but it says which has particularly improved. He didn't say productivity improved. He said it's remained the same. But he did say communication has gotten better. So that's our answer for number 2. And overall, this is number 4. Okay, let's take a look at number 3, guys. According to Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, of course, which of these sectors can adapt most easily to working from home? Is it airlines, media, or retail? Okay, now actually, I don't have to look back at the article. This is too simple. A, we know airlines are in big trouble, so definitely not. And then C, retail, brick and mortar physical stores are also in big trouble, so it cannot be C, retail. But B, media. Yes, things have been going okay, so media is our answer for number 3. And number 4, how might publishers save money in the future? So we're talking about publishers having a tough time, but now a lot of their employees are working from home and things are going okay. So they could reduce office space. So that is what I think our answer is. A, by reducing office space and encouraging flexible working. Bada bing, bada boom. I don't have to look at the other answers. I know that's the correct one. B, by transferring the readership and advertising to Google and Facebook. No, that would be detrimental. That would be bad. And C, by making office space more high density. No, that's a really, really bad idea. People would be quite upset. Okay, so we got CBBA. All right, guys, let's move on to number 5. Number 5 here, it says, find the following words and phrases from the text. Okay, so we're going to have to search in the text here. So 5.1 says, a 2-word phrasal verb meaning try hard to solve a difficult problem. Paragraph 1. Oh, okay, so what are we looking for? Wait, I'm kind of spacing out here. A two-word phrasal verb meaning try hard to solve a difficult problem. Okay, two-word phrasal verb. Before the coronavirus pandemic struck, 1.7 million people mainly work from home in the UK, or about 5%. Since the pandemic, amid warnings that some lockdown restrictions could stay in place into 2021, companies are grappling with. Okay. To grapple with is our answer. Grapple with. Okay, so there's our phrasal verb. So grapple with, like this says here, means try hard to solve a difficult problem. Now, the reason why grapple by itself as a verb means to kind of like this action when you're grappling with someone. Think about wrestling, right? Two wrestlers come together and kind of put each other's arms over each other, and they're kind of fighting. They're grappling with each other, right? So to grapple with can mean to try to solve a difficult problem. I'm grappling with many difficult problems right now, right? Anyhow, let's take a look at number 2. We have a 4-word noun phrase meaning traditional shops that do not operate on the internet. Paragraph 6. This one's easy because I talked about it before. 4-word noun is bricks and mortar retail. Bricks dash and dash mortar retail. So yeah, just remember the meaning of that, bricks and mortar retail, is a real physical store, a traditional shop, not online. Yeah, they do not operate on the internet. Anyhow, number 3, a noun meaning the process of changing something so that it can be used in a different way or for a different purpose. So a noun that means a change in something. Paragraph 7. Okay, that's pretty easy because it's the second word in paragraph 7, adaptation. Adaptation. So yeah, adaptation is a noun that means a change in something, right? A process of change. Now, adaptation, the noun itself, not terribly useful, but the verb is good, right? To adapt means to change yourself to maybe fit a new environment. Like when you guys get a new job, you have to adapt to a new workplace, right? You have to adapt to your job, right? So adaptation, pretty useful word, but I'd say the verb form is much more commonly used. Anyhow, number 4, guys, a verb meaning make something happen. That's pretty general. Paragraph 8, let's take a look. Lessons learned from lockdown could spark a more rapid and widespread virtualization of business practices. According to one investor, it's clear to us that we're likely to see an increased virtualization. Okay, wait, what am I looking for? Make something happen. Okay. Remote working has gone much more smoothly than many companies feared. Smaller offices, more meetings being conducted online, and yada yada. Okay, so to make something happen. To make something happen. Wait, what's paragraph? Oh, okay. Sorry. The answer here is actually in the first line. It is spark. To spark something. Now, actually, spark the noun. Spark the noun is a little bit hard to explain. What is, as a noun, like let's say, you have some fireworks and you light the fireworks, right? Like a Roman candle. I'm not sure if you guys know what that is, but that's the one, like a little stick, and then you light it up, and then there are sparks coming off of it, like little bits of light, right? So to spark, though, this verb to spark, it means to make something happen, to get something started, right? Anyhow, interesting expression, not too commonly used, but not bad. Number 5, a verb meaning feel very shocked, upset, or confused. So, okay, we're looking for a synonym of shocked, upset, or confused in paragraph 9. From that perspective, the likely long-term losers are airlines, hotels, and a commercial property sector already reeling from the destruction being suffered by retailers. Okay, so I think actually our answer here is pretty simple. It is real. to reel from something. If you are reeling from something, you are shocked, you are upset. Usually when we use reel, it's like you have suddenly been shocked or upset by something that has come along just recently, right? So to reel from something means, yeah, you are shocked by something. Like let's say, unfortunately, let's say your pet dies, right? Your cat or your dog, you know, little Mr. Mittens, unfortunately passes away. You are going to be pretty shocked and upset, obviously, when your pet passes away. You will be reeling from the death of your pet. Sorry about the very negative example, but when we use reel, it's combined with something quite negative. Anyhow, guys, number 6, a verb meaning squeeze or press together in paragraph 11. Okay, paragraph 11. Coronavirus has concertinaed a lot of change. Okay, so that is our answer. Concertini. Now, I'm going to be honest here. This is a word that I rarely, if ever, use, and I probably haven't seen this word used in probably the past couple of years. So when I came across this word when I was reading the article, yeah, I just don't think we use this. This is very much British English, right? I cannot recommend this word. If you want to say that something has been condensed or squeezed into something, just use squeeze or condensed instead. Okay, guys, anyhow, let's take a look at the next one we have here, which is number 7. Number 7 says a 2-word adjective meaning planning for the future. Also, paragraph 11. So 2-word adjective. Coronavirus has concertinaed a lot of change we have been seeing over the last number of years in just 3 months, flexible working being one of them. A former executive publisher of the Mirror. Office space is costly and tends to be high density. A lot of people will be uncomfortable with that even after the virus. Forward thinking. There's our answer. Forward thinking. Now, this is a 2-word adjective because it says forward-thinking managers, right? Now, if you think about it, what could this mean? The meaning is quite simple. Forward-thinking means they are thinking into the future. They're thinking about what may happen in the future. Yeah, it just means somebody planning for the future, somebody thinking about the future is a forward-thinking person. Okay, number 8 is our last one. A noun meaning a period of delay between one event and another. Okay, period of delay. Oh, also paragraph 11. So back to paragraph 11, guys. Forward-thinking managers were already pushing flexible working, but in more traditional industries like newspaper publishing, there has unfortunately been a cultural lag. That is our answer. Cultural lag. So again, cultural lag means a period of delay, a delayed response between one event and another. If there's a cultural lag, it means that things maybe in your workplace or in the culture are not up to date with modern standards, right? I'm trying to think of a good example here. What would be an example of a cultural lag? Well, I think if you live in the countryside in your country, as you know, living in the countryside, people tend to be more conservative or maybe traditional, right, compared to people living in large modern cities. So culturally, they can kind of be a little bit behind mainstream modern culture in large cities. So an example I could use is actually my hometown. So, well, I hope this is not like controversial for anybody. I don't know. But living here in Vancouver in 2020, ever since I came to live in Vancouver, and I started about 10 plus years ago, Vancouver is pretty famous for being a very tolerant, open-minded city, especially for members of the LGBTQI plus community, or gay people, queer people, etc. And my hometown, in comparison, it's not bad. It's not like people are terrible to gay people in my hometown, but not as accepting. So when I came here to live in Vancouver, even though this is my country, when I first came to Vancouver, like 2009 or 8 maybe, when I first saw people like two guys holding hands, or obviously a gay couple or two lesbians, for me it was also a little bit of a cultural shock, right? I was also a little bit, like, not angry at them, or I wasn't afraid of them, or thought something bad about them, but I was still kind of like whoa, like they're gay people, they're holding hands, oh my god. So yeah, because my hometown, like, you just don't see that kind of thing. Not that it's like aggressive or terrible for gay people, but it's, my hometown's culture is like a little bit behind mainstream Canadian culture. So my hometown, yeah, there's always kind of a cultural lag in the countryside. Anyhow, guys, but we better continue onwards here with the rest of this here. And I should shut up. Okay, number 6, we have expressions with prepositions. Complete the phrases from the text using prepositions. Okay, so number 1, we have resistant blank, implementing flexible working hours. So we got resistant. Now, what is our preposition? Is it with? Resistant with? No. Is when we use resistant, it is always resistant to, right? So I'm going to write number 6 over here. Our answer is 2. Resistant to change. If you are resistant to change, maybe you are conservative or traditional, that means you are fighting against change. You don't like change, right? If you are resistant to change, because that means you're fighting against it. Anyhow, number 2. A revolution, blank terms of how we work. When we use revolution, like a large change in something, our preposition is in. A revolution in terms of how we work. So there will be a big change in how we work, according to this article. Number 3, working blank the kitchen table. So when you're working and it involves a surface, it will simply be on, right? Working on the kitchen table. Or it could be at, working at the kitchen table. Okay, so actually either one is good here. I should say at is probably a better choice, but anyhow. Number 4, limited blank walking to the kitchen table. Limited to. Yeah, when we use limited, we often combine it with to use as our preposition. I have been limited to 2 coffees a day. I can only drink 2 coffees a day. If I go over 2 coffees, my wife is going to smack me, right? Just kidding. But anyhow, number 5. Number 5, most able to adapt blank homeworking. I don't like that expression, homeworking. It is proper, but anyhow, most able to adapt. Now again, our preposition is actually to adapt to, right? When you move to a new country, you have to adapt to their culture, right? You have to adapt to their food. Can you adapt to eating, well, what's very Canadian? Can you adapt to eating pancakes and maple syrup every day? I hope you can adapt to it, because you're going to have to if you live in Canada. And then number 6, a decline blank sales. This will be a decline in sales. So if there's a decline in something, it means it's decreasing. A decline in sales is very negative for a company. Okie dokie, guys. So we're good with our prepositions here. We've only got 2 more ones to finish off here. Number 7 says, complete the sentences using the correct form of the word in brackets at the end of each sentence. Okay, so this shouldn't be too bad. We just have 6, but I'm going to have to erase the board here. So we're running out of room. So I will erase number 4. Sorry, this will look a little bit messy, but I hope you guys were able to get the correct answer before this. So let's move on, guys. Number 7. So we have to use these words in the brackets, but in the proper form. So number 1 here says, we're looking to use the word necessary. The founder of Jellyfish complains that meetings in the office often run on necessary. Now actually, I think they want us to use kind of the opposite of necessary, which could just be unnecessary. The founder of Jellyfish complains that meetings in the office often run on unnecessarily. Unnecessarily. Ooh, so not just using the negative form, but we need to change it to unnecessarily. Unnecessarily. Mr. Lee, who is very unnecessary. He is unnecessary Lee. Ooh, bad joke, right? Okay, number 2, guys. We have employ. Okay, so we got to use employ. For sectors representing vast areas of blank, home working is impossible. Airlines, brick and mortar retail, this kind of stuff. But employ is the verb. Cannot use the verb here. We need to use a noun. For sectors representing vast areas of employment. Employment is the answer we're looking for. Employment. Now that sounds kind of funny. Employment. You're employing mints, right? Delicious. Taste fresh. Ugh, terrible joke. Okay, number 3. The lesson learned from lockdown could lead to a rapid blah, blah, blah of business practices. Okay, now we're looking to use the word virtual, but we need to use the process of becoming virtual. So this word was used multiple times in the text, actually, is virtualization. The switch from reality to computer-based programs, right? Virtualization. Okay, number 4, we're looking to use restrict. Some lockdown blank could stay in place until 2021. Now, to restrict something is a verb. Again, though, we're looking to use the noun form of the verb restrict. So the noun form is restriction, right? So some lockdown. Now, we're talking about some lockdown. So it's not just the noun form, but also the plural noun form. So it should be restrictions. Restrictions. Okay, awesome. Number 5, at Jellyfish, they haven't noticed any drop in, and we're looking at the word produce, right? Now, well, produce or produce, right? Now, actually, those 2 words both have the same meaning, same spelling, different pronunciation. Let's talk about that for a second. So you could, P-R-O-D-U-C-E, you could say produce, right? To produce something, obviously we know that's a verb. It means to make something, right? Now the noun form could be produce, produce. The pronunciation is a little bit different. Produce and produce, right? Produce can be another word for vegetables or wheat, something that has been grown, right? Like I need to go to Safeway or I need to go to the grocery store to buy some produce. Anyhow, not too important. But what we need to do is change the verb form, produce, into the noun form and talk about productivity. Productivity. So, at Jellyfish, they haven't noticed any drop in productivity, workplace productivity, how much people are producing. Number 10, we're looking to use invest, right? Invest money into something. It says, something is someone who invests money in a business. So we're looking at the job, and of course that is investor. Well, not just a job. Anybody who wants to invest money in something is an investor, right? Okay, good. Now, guys, we're done number 7. Finally, we're basically done this article. We just have the discussion in number 8. It says, discuss the statements. The age of business travel is over. Okay, so we have some statements, and they want us to discuss this stuff here. This is kind of interesting. Now, obviously, it's hard for me to have a discussion with you guys. It'd be interesting if you guys made some comments about your own opinions. I'd really appreciate that. But what I can do, of course, is I could just give my own opinion. Maybe you could think about it at home and think about what your opinion is. Maybe write your opinion down. Could be useful. And these are kind of interesting. Okay, so discuss the statements. The first one, the age of business travel is over. The age of business travel is over. Discuss that statement. Okay, now I think that statement is a pretty interesting one. The age of business travel is over. Do I agree or disagree? I mostly agree with this statement. I do not think the age of business travel is completely over with, but I think to a large degree, yes, I think that less people, even after the pandemic is over, are going to be either going on a business trip themselves or sending their employees on a business trip, especially with how effective virtual meetings can be, right? Many companies and people have realized recently, through Skype, through Zoom, through Google Meets, through whatever video chat software, that having a meeting face-to-face with somebody is not always necessary. Do I think this is, like, for a big business deal, I do think, between, let's say, two large international companies, I still think that they will need to meet face-to-face and physically sign contracts with each other. So I think that will continue, but at a much reduced amount. I don't think business travel is going to be seen as so necessary like it was in the past. So I think it will continue, but probably at a very much reduced amount. Yeah, so interesting statement. Okay. Oh, okay. If you work from home, you should be paid less. What do I think about that statement? Well, of course, I disagree with that. I think you should be paid based upon merit and productivity. That is my own belief. If you are productive and you are able to produce as much at home as you can in the office, I don't think you should get paid less. I think that would be horribly unfair. I think people should just be paid upon how effective of an employee they are and how productive they are. And if they can be effective and productive at home, they should get paid the same amount. I don't see why working from home should mean you get paid less. If anything, the employer saves money because then they don't need that office space for the employee, so they should be happy if the worker can work effectively at home. But like I said before, I don't think all workers can work effectively at home. I don't think it's always a good idea for everybody because it depends on circumstances, the age of the employee. Can they work effectively at home? Do they have a workplace at home they can work at? Maybe they got a roommate, a cat, a dog, a kid. It gets messy, right? And then some people also, unfortunately, just don't work well unless they're supervised. Anyhow, the last statement we have here is also interesting. The idea of home working is unfair on people who have to work face-to-face. So people have to work face-to-face, like people working in brick-and-mortar retail, airlines. Yeah, there's still a lot of people that cannot work virtually from home, right? It's just not possible depending on the industry. It's not, so this statement, the idea of home working is unfair on people. So it's unfair for those people. I don't really agree with this statement. I don't think it's unfair. I just think, that's how it is. Like, if you work in retail in, a Nike store or whatever, like, that's the job you chose. You can't work from home. Yeah, that's too bad, but that's not home working's fault. Nobody's at fault here. It's just that's too bad for you. So this statement, I don't actually really understand what this statement is saying. Like, this is unfair. Well, too bad. There's a pandemic. I'm sorry, but yeah, if you're working in an airline, brick-and-mortar retail store, or other jobs where you need to physically be somewhere, it's not anybody's fault. It's a global pandemic. It's safer for you to not be at work. Yeah, you can't work online at home, but that's just the reality of your job. That's just too bad for you, right? Anyhow, guys, so those are my thoughts about this stuff here. Maybe you disagree with me. Totally fine if you do. Actually, that's awesome. Maybe we could debate it sometime. You can meet me on, I don't know, Zoom or something and yell at me. That'd be totally awesome. I would appreciate that. But yeah, guys, we're finally done this reading article now. Now, I just realized that actually there was one more thing we were supposed to do before getting into the third class, the elective class. Well, unfortunately, I just don't think we had enough time. But I do think this is interesting, so hopefully this is something you guys could do at home with a partner, you know, your wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, dog, cat, and Brian. But anyhow, this is the current events discussion. It's pretty interesting. So you guys have seen this one before. Ideally, if you had a printer at home, you could print this off and cut it in half, and one person gets one half, the other person gets the other half. And then you have questions to ask. Like if you're student A, you ask student B, and you have questions about current events. I think current events is like one of my favorite topics because I love reading the news and reading articles. That's why I have the BBC, New York Times on my phone. So we have questions like, are you interested in current events and news? Yes, definitely. Is there a difference between news and current events? Is there? Yeah, I would say there's a slight difference. Current events and news are basically the same thing. They're interchangeable, but I think current events can be things that are happening local to you that won't be in the news. But anyhow. 3, what stories have you been following recently? Oh, I've been following many stories recently. Of course, everybody here and around the world is probably following stories related to the coronavirus. How's the work on the vaccine going? There's, I think, Oxford in the UK seems to be not pretty close. That's too much, I think. But they're doing clinical trials. So I think maybe Oxford, and there's a company in the US that seems to be also doing a lot of clinical trials for a vaccine. Moderna in the United States and Oxford University in the UK. It seems to me that they are kind of further ahead than many other researchers who are trying to find a vaccine. So good for them. So I'm following that. I was following the story with the conflict between India and China last 2 weeks. Of course, I'm following stories with the conflict or arguments between Canada, my home country, of course, and China because they jailed 2 Canadian citizens unjustly because we arrested one of the CEOs of a large Chinese company called Huawei, and the person's name is Meng Wanzhou, and they may be extradited to the United States. I hope she is extradited soon, and China is trying to punish Canada for that. So following that. Anyhow, how many hours a day do you spend reading about, watching, or listening to news? It's really hard for me to watch the news, but I probably spend at least an hour or an hour and a half reading news stories every day. What is the latest news about your country? Canada. What is the latest news about news in Canada? I think the latest news in Canada, there was a crazy guy who was upset about the coronavirus restrictions and lockdown from Manitoba, and he drove all the way to Ontario to go to the capital city of Ottawa to talk with the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and he actually broke into his house or through the gates, and he had guns. He was a current or former military man. Anyhow, he got arrested. Thankfully, Justin Trudeau and his family were not at that home right now, so he wasn't able to do anything bad. But yeah, he was kind of a crazy guy, and then a lot of stories came out about him, so I think he's like psychologically disturbed. I hope he gets some help, but he should also probably go to prison. Anyhow, guys, but I'm going to stop it there. But I do think this is really interesting, the current events discussion. So yeah, cut it up with a partner and ask and answer these questions back and forth. Could be a lot of fun. But we're going to take a break, and after the break, we are going to be talking about the media for our elective. So actually, we got a lot of work to do. So if you want to take a look at it before the break here, take a look at this one here. It says the media, and yeah, should be a lot of fun. Oh, I printed the same page twice. Oh my God, this is really long. I hope we can get it done in the third class. But anyhow, I will take a break. I will see you again in 10 minutes. And yes, I didn't turn on the microphone. There we go. We have the media, and we also have this other thing here, opinion, attitude, and belief. Honestly, this is probably too much. It would be very hard for me to get through this with you guys, but maybe I'm going to try to go really quickly through this because there's a lot of useful stuff. So let's take a look here. It says match the words and phrases in the box with their definition 1 to 12. Write the word or phrase after each definition. Okie dokie. All right, guys, so I don't think I'm going to go over all the words here and explain them first and then go over the blanks with you. Instead, I think what we'll do here is I will just go over the definitions in the blank and then give you the answer. Hopefully you guys can get the answer at home as well before I give it to you, but we'll see how it goes. So number 1, large format quality newspapers. Okay, so we're talking about something that's more common in the past. We don't read the newspapers so much anymore, but these are referred to as broadsheets. Broad meaning kind of wide, and sheets, which can mean paper, right? So broadsheets can refer to large format quality newspaper. New York Times, London Times, that kind of stuff, right? And whatever in your country. Okay, number 2, small format newspapers. Okay, so what would small format newspapers be? Those would be tabloids. So the difference between the two is the amount of information or just the amount of content, right? Broadsheets are large newspapers, right? Very, very thick, include a lot of paper, a lot of content, right? Tabloids, much less content. So we call them tabloids. Anyhow, number 3, guys, is people who write for newspapers or periodicals. Well, that would be similar to journalists, but is it journalists or is it reporters? Reporters are the people who report, journalists are the people who write. So because it says people who write for, we're going to go with journalists, right? When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a journalist. But anyhow, number 4, the amount of space or time given to an event in newspapers or on television. So that would be coverage is the amount of time we use to describe where people are able to look into an event or something on TV or in the newspaper. All right, number 5, political, social, and economic events that are happening now. Of course, that would be current affairs. Current meaning happening now. Current affairs. Okay, good. Number 6, radio or television programs. So those would be what would that be? That would be what? Oh, no, we're good. Oh, yeah, what am I talking about? Broadcast. Okay, having a bit of a meltdown here. My brain is not working so well. Anyhow, broadcast, of course, a broadcast is when they show something on the TV and it's related to news. Okay, number 7, guys. To enter a password and start to access a computer system. Okay, so that's kind of a useful word. And of course, that is log on. I'm pretty sure you guys already know the meaning of log on. When you log on to something, you enter your password and then you're able to use Windows 10 or whatever it is, right? Okay, number 10, people who write articles or make broadcasts about events in the news. Okay, so these people, of course, are reporters. So they're different from journalists because they don't just write articles, they make broadcasts about events in the news. Okay, so number 9, to transfer pages from a website onto your own computer. Okay, that one is easy. That is download, right? Because everybody here has downloaded something in the internet age. Number 10, the international network linking millions of computers. Oh, that's too easy. It's the internet, of course. The internet. And number 11, an expression referring to the inability of a human to process everything he or she sees or hears. Now, this is a good term, actually. This is related to as information overload. So information overload overload means like too much, excessive, right? So information overload means you are receiving or getting too much information that for you to process. You can't think about it all because it's like too much. It's like when you meet your very talkative friend and your talkative friend's talking about problems in their relationship and they're just blah, 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 talking too quickly and you're like, oh my God, this is information overload. I don't need to know this and this is too much for me. Anyhow, information overload. And anyhow, number 12, by process of elimination, a collection of online pages created by a company, organization, or individual. Of course, that is a website. All right, guys. So a lot of these words here you guys are already familiar with. Website, the internet, download, log on. Reporters and journalists, you're probably pretty good with them. Maybe didn't know the exact difference. Current affairs, yes. But other ones here, a little bit more tricky. But anyhow, we finished that. So number 2 here says, complete this extract from a television interview with an appropriate word or phrase from the box. Oh my God. Okay, so we have quite a large extract from a television interview. We need to fill in the blanks here with vocabulary that we have in the box. We have censorship, checkbook journalism, entertainment, exploiting, freedom of the press, gutter press, information, integrity, invasion of privacy, etc., etc., etc. A lot of fairly difficult terms here, to be honest, right? But again, I don't want to spend so much time on this, so I kind of want to go over this quickly. Otherwise, we won't have enough time for the other activity we have to do. So anyhow, let's read over this together. So I'm going to put number 2 and then 1. And the interviewer here says, welcome to today's program. Today we will be discussing the blank and asking the question, should we allow newspapers and television channels to print or say whatever they like? Okay, so we have some context here, so we might be able to guess what goes in the blank. And the context is that question, should we allow newspapers and television channels to print or say whatever they like? That would be related to something very, very serious that exists in many Western countries like Canada or America, probably also in your country, whether that's Brazil, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, etc. That would be freedom of the press. Because freedom of the press means that the press should be allowed to write whatever they want, right? So yeah, that would be the first one. Okay, moving on to the second. In the studio, I have television personality Timothy Blake and blank Rupert Pobell, multi-millionaire owner of the Daily Views newspaper. Timothy, let's start with you. Okay, so our blank here is related to Rupert Pobell, who is a multi-millionaire owner of the Daily Views newspaper. Okay, so we know this guy is rich and he owns a newspaper. So he is a media tycoon. Now, tycoon, we know what media is. Media is related to the news or television, right? Tycoon is an interesting word. A tycoon is somebody who owns a company, a very successful company, and maybe controls a large percentage of that industry, right? So, like Mark Zuckerberg could be referred to as a tycoon, right? So basically a tycoon is a very powerful businessman. There are not many tycoons in the world, but Mark Zuckerberg is one of them. Anyhow, guys, number 3, it says, okay, so TB, or Timothy Blake, says, thank you. In my opinion, it's time the government imposed stricter blank of the press in order to prevent something. Okay, so Timothy thinks that the government needs to put restrictions on the press. What kind of restrictions would these be? It would be, it's time the government imposed stricter censorship. Censorship. Now, censorship is the noun. To censor is the verb. To censor means to not, or to be restricted from releasing information. So, unfortunately, if you live in a country like China, China, of course, wonderful country, but A lot of the news in China is censored. They don't allow newspapers to say whatever they want. There's a lot of censorship there. They don't have freedom of the press. Anyhow, number 4. So number 4 here. Thank you. In my opinion, it's time the government imposed stricter censorship of the press in order to prevent something journalists and reporters from making money by yada 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 yada. To prevent some kind of reporters. Maybe they're talking about some kind of dirty or not very, how can I say, clean or morally good reporters. And the word we'd be looking for here is unscrupulous. Unscrupulous. Now unscrupulous is an interesting adjective. If you are unscrupulous, that means you don't have a lot of morals. It means you're willing to do whatever it takes to get what you want. A similar word or a synonym of unscrupulous would be something like, highly competitive, ruthless, or cutthroat, right? If you're that kind of person, you will stop at nothing. It's usually related to doing something bad in order to get money. Anyhow, he says, to prevent unscrupulous journalists and reporters from making money by something people. And my guess here is by exploiting people. And exploit is a pretty serious verb, right? To exploit somebody means to use somebody in a bad way. So for example, in the past, long time ago, during the period of colonization, many European countries exploited African countries in order to steal the resources and make more money. So exploit, if you exploit somebody, it's a bad thing. So you shouldn't do that. Anyhow, moving on, he says, I have often accused Mr. Pobel's organization of blank. Nowadays, I can't even sunbathe in my garden without being photographed by his hordes of something. Okay, so he's accusing the tycoon of something bad, right? And he's talking about being in his garden and people are taking pictures of him. So that would be invasion of privacy. Now, we know invasion kind of means like attack, right? Invasion of privacy. This means people kind of illegally break into your private world and record you or take pictures of you, something like that, right? So if I came up to you on the street and I'm like, hey, how much money do you make? Or like, hey, can I take a picture of you? Or let's just say I come up to you on the street and I just take a picture of you or a video. That would be an invasion of privacy, right? Like I am invading your personal space. You didn't allow me to do that, but I'm doing that anyway. So invasion of privacy, not very nice, right? And the people who are famous for invasion of privacy, certain reporters or journalists who write about celebrities, right? And celebrity gossip, we call those people paparazzi, right? So that's our answer for number 7. Without being photographed by his hordes of paparazzi, they're like vultures, and everything they print about me is lies, complete rubbish. So yeah, paparazzi. Sounds like Papa Nazi, but anyhow. So paparazzi. So yeah, just remember, if you are a member of the paparazzi, if you're a paparazzi, right, you're the kind of person that tries to take pictures of famous people like Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise is awesome, and ask him really weird questions. But yeah, I think paparazzis are kind of really scummy. No, this is mean. They can make a lot of money, paparazzis, if they take a good picture at the right time. But I view them as kind of scummy, bottom-feeding people. It's not a good job. It's not very respectable. Anyhow, so continuing on here with the interviewer says, but isn't it true that the media portrays us as, but isn't it true that the media provides us with valuable, number 8, valuable what? And of course, we're talking about valuable information. Isn't it true that the media provides us with valuable information? And number 9, the media provides us with valuable information and entertainment, right? Now, I guess that's true. And censorship would deprive us of much of this. So these guys are having a kind of a debate, and so the interviewee is saying like he doesn't like paparazzi, he thinks there needs to be censorship to protect people from being exploited by paparazzi, right? But the interviewer is kind of arguing back that the media does provide us with useful information and entertainment, so censorship would not be a good idea. Anyhow, moving on. The person says, of course, Mr. Blake's accusations are unfounded, as are the accusations of something we have received. So accusations of what? He's talking about accusations of something called checkbook journalism. Now, this is check written the British way. Now, check, I mean physical check. You know, you write, oh, I owe this person this amount of money. But checkbook journalism. Checkbook journalism just describes people who want to make money. We have received, okay. However, I can safely say that the Daily Views never pays people huge amounts of money for stories. We have far too much blank for that. We have too much what? He's probably saying integrity. Integrity. Integrity is actually a really interesting word. So integrity is a noun. And integrity means something similar to like honor, respect, right? If you have a lot of integrity, you are basically a good person. That means you have a kind of role or job that you believe in playing in order to help other people. Oh, Pablo Reyes Araya. Yeah, Chinese oppression of something. Yeah, they do that to their press, unfortunately. That's true. But anyhow, yeah, integrity. If you have a lot of integrity, that usually means people respect you because you have a role, you have a job that you believe in, and you will not, how can I say, you will not break your morals. You will not go down a bad path if you have a lot of integrity. Okay. So that was number 11. And don't forget that my paper also has an excellent reputation for blank. Okay, so what is he talking about? An excellent reputation for maybe investigative journalism, right? Yes, it's number 12. His newspaper has an excellent reputation for investigative journalism. And of course, investigative journalism regards like journalists who go and investigate something, because we all like good investigative journalists, right? So we'll move on to 13, guys. 13. Remember, it was us who uncovered corruption in the banking system and ran a series of articles on child labor in clothing factories. We give our blank what they want, and that's what really counts. Sounds like customers. We give our customers, but it's probably readers or, yeah, our readership. So readership describes the people who are reading the paper, right? If you are somebody who subscribes to New York Times, BBC, whatever, you are part of their readership. Okay, and moving on. Okay, last two blanks here. So TB says, but most of what you report isn't really news. And a lot of it is just a big pile of lies. Sensational stories made up to entertain people, typical blah behavior. In other words, typical blah behavior. So what is he talking about? Typical, I think gutter press. Typical gutter press behavior. Okay, so think about what that would mean. Gutter press. Now, the gutter. What is the gutter? When you're on a road, especially like in the countryside, and you think about the road, on the side of the road, when there isn't a sidewalk, right? So on the side of the road where maybe water leaks down and garbage leaks down, that is the gutter. Gutter is part of like the sewage system, right? Gutter is dirty. So if we say gutter press, it means like the dirty press, paparazzi, or people reporting on things that are not true just to make money. That's what the gutter press is. Anyhow, guys, we already know the answer to 15 through process of elimination, but let's take a look here. So anyhow, you said gutter press behavior. In other words, I'm amazed nobody has sued you for something yet. And that something is libel. If you are sued for libel, that means you are sued for not telling the truth, for writing or saying something false about another person. So of course we all have freedom of speech, right? But if I say about a certain person, let's say I'm in a position of power, a journalist, a reporter, whatever, and I say Prime Minister Trudeau is, you know, a corrupt, dirty person, and he did this thing. And let's say that thing is, now I could say he's corrupt and dirty. That's just my opinion, right? And I don't think I would get in trouble. But if I said that he did something that he did not do, and he can prove that he didn't do it, I could be sued for libel. And that means for invading or attacking his image without having any proof. And I could be sued and probably lose a lot of money. Okay, now the third part here says, now read this essay and complete the gaps with one of the words or phrases from exercise 1 and 2. You will need to change the form of some of these words. Okay, let's actually do this. So we got to use the vocabulary from part 1 and part 2. And in some cases here, we need to modify how the word is used, right? So what we should probably do is, I've got to erase number 1. How many blanks? Oh my God, we have 23 blanks here. Ugh. 23 blanks. You know what, guys? Actually, I think this would be better for you guys to look at home, because I know there's also an answer key that's provided here. I think it'd be a good idea, like if you want extra homework, look at this at home. Fill in the blanks and then check the answer key and see how you do. Because I kind of want to move on and take a look at that other sheet we have here, which is opinion, attitude, and belief. I think that's kind of more important. So, like I said before, take a look at this if you're interested. Try to fill in the blanks. Check the answer key if you're not sure. But let's move on. Take a look at opinion, attitude, and belief, because I think this is a little bit more useful for you guys. So please take a look at this sheet here. It says the words in italics in the following sentences are all grammatically incorrect. For example, a noun has been used instead of an adjective, or a verb has been used instead of a noun, etc. Decide what the correct form of the word should be in each sentence and write your answers in the crossword on the next page. So there's a crossword on the back here. Okay, interesting. So this one here, guys, I think that people need to show greater tolerance for each other. Now, we already have the answer, because if you check the back side of this, number 1 across is tolerance. Tolerance. So our answer is tolerance. And tolerance is the ability to tolerate something, to be able to deal with something. We all tolerate our loved ones. Even if our loved ones do something that we don't like, you know, we tolerate it because they're our loved ones. Anyhow, number 2, some major companies are obsession with secrecy. Our obsession with secrecy. So this is the noun, obsession. Obsession is a really good one. if you have an obsession, it means you really focus on something too much, excessively, right? But the noun doesn't fit here. Instead, what we need is the verb form. So we should actually say some major companies are obsessed with secrecy. Obsessed with secrecy. Now, let's see if that works. Turn to the opinion, attitude, and belief crossword. And, yeah, it works for 2 down. This is kind of confusing. Please sentences with the words from exercise 1 or from the completed crossword. In some cases, more than one answer will be possible. Where's number 2? Oh, okay, yeah, no, that works. She's very well organized and always takes a upset. No, that doesn't really work. That's, oh, no, that is it is correct. It is obsessed. But 2, is there 2 across or just 2 down? Looks like I'm missing some stuff here. Anyhow, but yeah, we're looking for obsessed for this one. Number 3, guys. Number 3, I reckoning that global warming is having more of an effect than we think. Okay, so number 3, reckoning is in the wrong verb format. You don't need to do this in the present continuous tense. We actually just need the present simple tense. So it actually should just be I reckon. Now, if you reckon, that means you think, you believe. That's your opinion, right? I reckon that global warming is having more of an effect than we think. Now, does that fit on here? Number 3, I'm absolutely something. So RECKON 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Reckon. Yeah, reckon does work, but number 3, I'm absolutely something about keeping fit and go to the gym at least once a day. I feel like I didn't print off the second page of this. So I don't think I can actually do the crossword with you guys, although reckon does fit in the number 3 here. Anyhow, let's take a look, guys. Number 4, we strongly suspicious that the proposal to develop the computer facilities will be rejected. We strongly suspicious, but of course this should be a verb. Suspicious is the noun. So what is the verb of suspicious? The verb is suspect. We suspect, we kind of guess. We are suspicious of those people. We suspect this is true. Anyhow, number 5, some people are extremely bigotry, especially regarding things like race or religion. Okay, now bigotry is the noun. What is bigotry? Well, bigotry is when you are bigoted against something, and you like against somebody because of their race or religion. Bigotry plays into things like racism and sexism. If I am bigoted against women, it would mean that I think men are better than women, right? You know, all women, women shouldn't have jobs. Women should just stay at home and cook and clean and make dinner and that kind of stuff. If I say that, that is a bigoted opinion or belief, right? That would mean I'm kind of a bad person. I am sexist in that case. Now, if I am racist and I have bigoted opinions, that would mean that I think like white people are better than black people and Hispanic people and Indian people and East Asians or whatever. So yeah, bigotry is a bad thing. Now this case, so bigotry does not fit. Some people are extremely, not bigotry, but bigoted. Big-o-tid. Looks kind of weird, but it is correct. Bigoted. Anyhow, I hope you're not a bigoted person. We should all give everybody, regardless of their race or religion or gender, the benefit of the doubt. Anyhow, number 6, I very much doubtful that the situation will improve in the near future. Now again, we have an adjective actually, and we need to change this into the verb. I very much doubt. So of course, if you doubt something, you don't think it's true or you don't think it's gonna work, right? Like, if I doubt somebody, it means I don't really believe what he or she has to say, right? Like in Vancouver, there's a lot of homeless people, and they try to scam people sometimes, and they'll tell them a lie in order to try to get money, but I doubt them, so I don't give them money. Anyhow, number 7, guys. A lot of people are fanatic about sport in general and football in particular. Now here we have the noun. A fanatic is a person who's really crazily obsessed with something. If we talk about a religious fanatic, that means somebody who is too obsessed with their religion. They take it too far. They follow all the rules, and maybe they're kind of aggressive or even violent against people who don't follow their religion, right? But it could also just mean that you really, really like something too much. Now, they're talking about people who are fanatic about sports, especially football. Some people in the UK or Europe are like crazy, or Brazil too, are really too crazy about their local soccer team, and then they get in fights with other people. But this case, this is a noun, but we need the adjective. A lot of people are fanatical. Fanatical about sports, especially football. Okay, so in Canada too, a lot of people are quite fanatical about hockey and their local hockey team. That's why in Vancouver, when was that? 2011, 12 maybe? During the Stanley Cup playoff, which is like near the end of the hockey season, Vancouver was in the final game versus Boston, and Boston won. And then people in Vancouver just went crazy, started breaking into stores, rioting, looting. It was chaos. It was really, really disappointing to see people in Vancouver acting so stupidly. But anyhow, let's move on to number 8. He was very hardworking and dedication to his research. Now, we know dedication means that you are really focused on something, you believe in it, you're going to put in a lot of effort. Now here though, dedication doesn't work. We need dedicated. He is dedicated to something, right? So dedicated is what we want. Okay, good. Moving on to number 9. In my opinionated, people don't take enough exercise, or people don't get enough exercise. This one's too easy. Opinionated. Opinionated is good. It's an adjective. If you're an opinionated person, it means, well, it's not positive or negative, but it's a good word. If you are an opinionated person, it means you have very strong opinions and beliefs, and it's very hard for people to change them in you. So in this case, though, it's just in my opinion, right? And that's really commonly used. And actually, there's a shorthand term that we write when we're texting, and that is IMO. So usually people, like in a text or when they're writing something, they'll write IMO, comma, whatever their belief or argument is. And that means in my opinion. In my opinion, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, number 10, guys. I consider myself to be a pragmatist person. Interesting. Now, a pragmatist is kind of similar to a realist. A pragmatist is somebody who tries to think realistically. They try to be honest about the situation. So this person would, in this case, we actually need the adjective form is pragmatic. I consider myself to be a pragmatic person because this is the adjective form. But pragmatic is, like, if you're a pragmatic person, is kind of in between being, how can I say, pessimistic and optimistic. If you're optimistic, you always try to see the good side of everything. Tomorrow is going to be better. If you're a pessimistic person, you always kind of have a negative view. You know, tomorrow is going to be worse, things are going to be bad, you're always very doubtful. But if you're a pragmatic person, you try to be in between those two and try to view things realistically. Anyhow, number 11, guys, we have team members need to be completely commitment and prepared to work for long hours. No, they need to be completely committed. So if you are committed to something, it's similar to being dedicated to something. If you're dedicated or committed to something, you really want this thing to work, you're going to work on it, you're going to put in a lot of effort, right? Like I am, well, yeah, okay, everybody who is married, well, maybe not everybody, but a large percentage of the people who are married, we are committed and dedicated to our wives or husbands, right? We believe in our wife and husband, and we work hard to try to make our relationship good, you know, blah, 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 even though it's tough. Anyhow, number 12. The government is regardless foreign debt, especially in developing countries, as a major barrier to global economic development. So I think this one here, regardless, the government is regarding. Actually, for me, this is correct, but I would totally change the sentence, to be honest. I would probably say the government regards foreign debt, especially in developing countries, as a major barrier to global economic development. Yeah, I'd prefer to use regards, but we have to change it a little bit. You have to say the government regards foreign debt. Anyhow, guys, oh yeah, moving on to 13. Okay. People often indicate their disapprove of something through their body language rather than words. This will be disapproval. To show your disapproval, it means you don't agree with something, you disapprove of it, like obviously the opposite of approve. If you approve of something, you say, hey, that's good, that's great, let's go ahead. If you disapprove of something, you think, that's not good, I don't like this idea, I don't think we should go ahead, right? Anyhow, number 14, I maintenance that many young people would rather work than continue with their studies. Now this one here would be I maintain. This one, kind of a tough one. Now you probably know the meaning of maintain means to keep, right? Like John maintains his exercise regime, right? He's continuing with it, he keeps it, right? But you can also use maintain when you are stating an opinion that you still believe in. I maintain that, now here, I maintain that many young people would rather work than continue with their studies. Okay, that's a decent belief. I maintain that, what's a belief I have about something? I maintain that, don't want to say something controversial and get in trouble, but I maintain that dogs are better pets than cats. Ooh, controversial, right? It's my belief that dogs are better pets than cats are. Anyhow, number 15, guys. As far as I am concerning, happiness is more important than money. But here it's not concerning. As far as I am concerned. As far as I am concerned, happiness is more important than money. Do I agree with that? As far as I'm, yeah, I guess I believe in that. Yeah, but money is also important. So 16, unhappy people often have a cynic view of life. Oh, awesome. Okay. Now this actually we're looking for the adjective form of cynic, and this will be cynical. A cynical view of life. Cynical, a synonym for cynical would be like kind of pessimistic or negative, right? Cynical people are usually like they don't usually believe in other people or institutions. And cynical people are generally just very negative people, right? So anyhow, so that's cynical. Kind of a useful word. 17. I take strongly exceptional to people coming late or canceling appointments at short notice. Now, he doesn't take strong exceptional. He takes strong exception. I take strong exception. If you take strong exception, it means you are very opposed to something. Now, exception is kind of a tough one to use, and exception has another meaning as well. But if you say, I take exception to people doing something, it means you don't like it when people do this. So for me, I could say, I take strong exception to people who spit on the street, right? I don't like it when people spit on the street. I think that's really disgusting. Like, why are you spreading your bodily fluids on the streets. I don't want to walk on that. That's gross. I don't know what disease you have. You're spitting on the street. Dude, if you got to spit, nobody has to spit. But if you got to spit, just go to the bathroom. It's gross, right? Don't spit on the street. That's disgusting. Anyhow, I take strong exception to that. Number 18, many scientists are convincingly that human activity is threatening the future of many animal and plant species. Now, in this case, convincingly, no. We don't need the adverb form. We need something else. Many scientists are convinced. So if you are convinced, you believe something to be true, right? And of course, many scientists believe that it's true, that we are having an impact and threatening the future of many animals. So many scientists are convinced of that. I'm convinced of that too. 19, my parents are tradition people who believe that children should not have too much freedom. Not tradition people, but instead you need the adjective form, traditional. My parents are traditional people. So traditional would kind of mean like they believe in older ideas of how to raise children in this example, or kind of conservative, right? They have conservative views about how to raise children. My parents, my parents were kind of conservative or traditional when I was growing up. So I had to go to church every Sunday, and how can I say? I had to use good manners at home or I'd get in big trouble. Anyhow, number 20, he had very conservatism. Okay, so awesome, we just wrote that there. Conservatism views and did not like change of any sort. So this case, actually, our answer is conservative. So like I said before, conservative and traditional have a very similar meaning. If you're traditional, that means you believe in ideas from the past, you believe in following those. Conservative basically has the same meaning, but it also contains the meaning that, if you're conservative, you don't like change, right? You don't want to change something because you think it's already good enough. All right, guys, so we went over all these terms here. A lot of these are really, really good. Tolerance obsessed. Reckon, not so commonly used anymore, not as good. But tolerance, obsessed, good. Suspect, good. Bigoted, good. Doubt, very useful. Fanatical, not bad. Dedicated, good. Opinion, obviously good. Pragmatic, good. Committed, good. Regard and regarding, good-ish, but not too useful. Disapproval, not bad, not too commonly used though. To maintain something, it's okay. Concerned, good. Cynical, good. Exception, not bad, but not so commonly used. Convinced, very good. Traditional and conservative, bada bing, bada boom. Very, very useful. Okay, guys, so we went over all of that here, and of course, it does continue here, and you're supposed to fill this in the blanks here, but I don't have the rest, and actually I can't fill in the blanks. So I think it would be good for you guys, again, to take a look at this later and try to fill this crossword puzzle in yourself. It's not hard. It's pretty easy to follow, but, try your best. So, guys, before we finish today's class, I need to mention that you guys do have an assignment due before class on Friday. And I believe your assignment is related to TED Talks. And the TED Talk is being given by somebody named Noah Tavlin. And it's all about false news. So I think, again, just like the first article we looked at today about working from home, that's a very timely article because a lot of people are working from home. But this is also another timely activity because these days, of course, we know through media, whether that's mainstream media or internet sources or whatever, there's a lot of misinformation or disinformation. There's a lot of like Donald Trump would say, fake news out there, right? And we have to be careful about the news that we're consuming because sometimes it's just not true, right? Like a lot of people, unfortunately in the United States, a lot of people don't believe climate change is real. And there are even a lot of people in the US and maybe some people in Canada who believe that the coronavirus is not actually a big deal. They think it's just a minor flu, it's not so bad. you know, who cares? I don't want to wear a mask. I should be able to go to any store I want and not wear a mask, you know, blah, blah, blah. Actually, there's a group in Vancouver that I think once a week on Sunday, they're like a pretty minor, kind of small group of people that don't believe in the coronavirus, but they go around every Sunday on a little march around the downtown core and say like, oh, we don't like these restrictions and this is all garbage. But people usually yell at them because they're kind of crazy. But anyhow, this is your assignment here. Of course, there is a link here to the video that you have to watch. I'm not sure how long it is. And you guys have a bunch of questions. What makes circular reporting circular? And which of the following? So you've got some multiple choice questions. And then you also have 2 written questions. And you got to try your best to do this. So the written questions here, what are some ways you can avoid falling for false information and avoid contributing to the cycle of circular reporting? That is a tough question. So try your best. And number 6, what makes circularly reported facts so difficult to correct? All right, guys. So yeah, like I said, I don't actually know how long this movie is. Of course, I could check on my phone, but that's okay. Or this TED Talk is. Check out the TED Talk and try to answer these questions. It's just 6 questions, 4 multiple choice, and then 2 written questions. So try your best. Try to submit that for Friday, and before class on Friday, which is kind of early. That would be before, 10 o'clock. But try your best. Tomorrow, I will also be with you guys. We'll be doing some listening activities. Again, probably a lot of vocabulary mixed into that. So this is a very kind of vocabulary heavy week. You're getting a lot of vocab related to the media and news. And a lot of the vocab is really good. Some of it's pretty specific, but still kind of useful. And we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so check out this TED Talks. TED Talks are usually quite good. If you have, like I said before, try to finish off those 2 other activities that we're looking at, the fill in the blanks and the crossword, and then try this TED Talks as well. And if you have a lot of extra time, and this is just for your own interests, I highly recommend checking out, maybe you could just search on YouTube for TED Talks Amy Cuddy Body Language Talk. This is probably one of the best TED Talks that I've personally ever seen because I think it's very pragmatic. I think it contains a lot of very useful advice by this professor from the United States called Amy Cuddy, C-U-D-D-Y. And she talks about body language and how you can use body language to change how you approach things and to change your behavior in a positive way. Anyhow, I think it's maybe the most inspiring TED Talks I've seen and just really useful. So check it out if you've got extra time. But anyhow, guys, that about does it for me for today. Try out the homework. We'll see how you do. Make sure you submit it on Friday before the class starts. And have a good Wednesday. All right. Bye-bye.